What is up? And today we're going to get into the Atlanta Falcons game from yesterday, as well as some big picture thoughts on the franchise. But before we get started, I just want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share this with your friends and family, and to continue to support my channel.
Big as the Super Bowl.
For those of y'all that haven't know by now, the Atlanta Falcons will not be going to the playoffs. They lost to the Carolina Panthers 44-38 in overtime. And quite honestly, even if the Falcons had won that game, it wouldn't have mattered because, as you guys know, Tampa Bay did their job and they defeated the New Orleans Saints 27-19. And so, but overall, man, when you look at that game, it was an entertaining game. It was a, exciting game. And in some ways, that game specifically was kind of a microcosm of the Atlanta Falcons season, right? Earlier in the year, the offense was coming and, playing well, but, the defense wasn't good. And then at times during this late stretch, the defense was playing well, but the offense wasn't playing well. So really, when you look at what happened yesterday, like I said, the offense was playing good, but the defense was really bad. And it just felt like it was a rare time throughout the year where the Falcons would have both sides of the ball playing good at the same time. That might have happened maybe like one time throughout the whole year. And that was the, Falcons Giants game from a couple of weeks ago. And really the Giants are terrible. And so really, like, how much stock do you really put into a game like that? And so, but this is kind of who the Atlanta Falcons have been the entire year. They gave up 44 points to Carolina. And look, all credit should go to Bryce Young for how he looked in that game, because he was awesome. And quite frankly, if anyone who's paid attention to how good Bryce Young has been lately, in particular since he's been back from his benching that he had early in the year, in place of Andy Dalton. And really, since Bryce Young has been in the lineup since that benching, he's been playing really good football. He's been playing really well. He's strung together some really nice games, and he's looked like the guy that Carolina drafted him to be. And man, did he look like that yesterday. And so big ups to him. But the Atlanta Falcons in general, like I said, the defense, that nice little stretch that they had, during the last 4 or so weeks or so when they were playing good football, they came back to reality. Y'all know the deal. The inability to get after the quarterback, the inability to pressure, with the front four, the inability to cover in the secondary, our linebackers' inability to do anything, cover or even at times stop the run. That's just kind of what it was. Now, offensively in that game, again, the offense did their job yesterday. Michael Penix was awesome, especially after maybe like the first, quarter or so where, he was a little inaccurate throwing the ball, overthrowing people. And you can just tell that the chemistry with his receivers is still a work in progress at times. But, as he settled down, he was awesome. He played outstanding. He was 21 for 38 for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, he had an interception, which wasn't his fault. That was on Ray McLeod. And so I thought Michael Penix, played outstanding and showcased his incredible arm talent. He made a lot of just spectacular throws, throwing the ball in between the needle, in between defenders, throwing the ball to Drake London, who also had himself a big day, He had 10 receptions for 87 yards or something like that. I mean, he was awesome. And Bijan Robinson was awesome himself in the running game. He had 28 carries for 170 yards. And so the offense had themselves a day. And ultimately, they end up losing that game. Which brings me to a bigger picture point that I want to say and make when it comes to these Atlanta Falcons. And that bigger picture point is this. The 2024 Atlanta Falcons season was a catastrophic failure. An absolutely catastrophic failure of a season that these Atlanta Falcons have. There's just no way to argue against it. There's no denying it. This season for the Atlanta Falcons was a failure, a catastrophic failure. And here's the reality when it comes to these Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons had high expectations coming into the season. The Atlanta Falcons had expectations of making the playoffs and winning the NFC South. And they failed to do that. Absolutely failed to do that. They had their chances of winning this division. They're as early as around November. They had a 3-game lead in this division. 3 games over Tampa. After beating Tampa Bay twice, they had a 3-game lead, and they failed to close the deal. They allowed Tampa Bay to get right back in this division, and they've lost. And the Atlanta Falcons have lost and blew some games, and they lost this. They lost this division. And if I'm an Atlanta Falcon fan, I should be disgusted. I should be embarrassed that the Atlanta Falcons allowed themselves to blow this division. I should be angry, heated, outraged, because the Atlanta Falcons failed. They failed to reach their expectations that they had for themselves. And to me, I think when I look at blame for how this season has gone, to me, there's no further person that I'm looking at right now more so than Terry Fontenot, the general manager. The blame lays at his feet for this season. The Atlanta Falcons have now missed the playoffs 10 times in 12 years. Let me repeat that. The Atlanta Falcons have missed the playoffs 10 times over the past 12 seasons, including 7 straight seasons of missing the playoffs. That stretch, right, that the Falcons are in right now of missing the playoffs is tied for the longest streak of them missing the playoffs since 1990. That's 34 years of consecutive seasons of the Atlanta Falcons missing the playoffs. The Atlanta Falcons missed the playoffs from 1983 to 1990. This stretch that the Falcons are on right now is tied for the longest stretch since that point. That is hard to do in the NFL. And yet, the Atlanta Falcons have figured out a way to accomplish that, of having this long playoff drought. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. And as I said a few episodes ago, the reality when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons right now is, when it comes to just franchises right now, the Atlanta Falcons are in a tier of franchises like the Raiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, the Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee Titans, who currently have the number 1 pick in this year's draft coming up. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals, whatever franchise you want to associate the Atlanta Falcons with, teams that are just losing franchises that just do nothing but lose and be inept. That's where the Atlanta Falcons reside right now, and that's where they've been. The Atlanta Falcons are perennial losers. That's what they are. Perennial losers. That 10 missed seasons, 10 missed playoff appearances in 12 years. It's pathetic. And the blame to me lies at Terry Fontenot. Terry Fontenot has been the general manager of this franchise for 4 years, since 2021. He was the general manager. He's had 4 years to get this thing right. He's had 4 years to get this franchise back on the right footing and make good decisions. And frankly, he's failed. He's failed. The Atlanta Falcons this season they have a bad defense. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned earlier, the defense was awful against the Panthers. It was awful. It was really bad early in the year. This defense, after 4 years since Terry Fontenot took the job, they still have holes all over. They still need a pass rush. Still need consistent pass rush. They haven't seriously addressed it. And in the moves that they've tried to address the pass rush, it's failed. So they still need a pass rush. The linebacking core is very weak. And when you look at the secondary, outside of A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates, the secondary's pretty non-existent right now. Our cornerback play outside of A.J. Terrell, our second and third cornerbacks, are abysmal. They're awful. And you look at the safety play. We signed Justin Simmons. He wasn't really a needle mover. And so when push comes to shove, Terry Fontenot he has not done a good job at all of just making this team a high-level playoff team, a high-level team that he was brought here to do. That's just the facts. And when you add along the fact that the defense just hasn't been good, you look at his draft picks outside of the first round. And look, I'll give him some credit when it comes to what he's done in the first round. Bijan Robinson looks like an absolute superstar. Absolute superstar. This past season, Bijan Robinson finished fourth. No, let me tell you that. Third. Bijan Robinson finished third in the NFL in rushing with over 1,400 yards. The only two running backs that had more rushing yards than Bijan Robinson was Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley is an MVP candidate, and then Derrick Henry is at least a borderline MVP candidate, even though I don't think he's going to win it. So Bijan Robinson, he's a big-time player. So I'll give Terry Fontenot credit for that pick. And I'll also give him credit for Drake London. Drake London is a dog. I'll go to battle with that dude any day of the week. Drake London's a stud. But he also drafted Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts at this moment in time looks like one of the worst Atlanta Falcon first-round picks in recent memory. He's a bust. That's right, I said it. Kyle Pitts is a bust. That pick is an epic failure. And that falls on Terry Fontenot's feet. And Michael Penix, look, I know it's been 3 games, but Michael Penix looks like a franchise quarterback. That move was questioned, and like I said, it's been 3 games. And we'll see how he looks moving forward. But it's hard not to be encouraged with what we've seen out of Michael Penix these past 3 games. His arm talent is undeniable. He can move in the pocket. He can throw the ball downfield. He makes good decisions. He has good pocket awareness and presence. And he's poised. And he's not afraid to make plays at big moments. there's a lot to be encouraged with Michael Penix. And so, again, I'll give Terry Fontenot some credit on those picks. But if you look at what he's done outside of the first round, they're awful. They're terrible. There's a lot of misses at signing defensive linemen, some offensive linemen, linebackers. It's just a bunch of whiffs on his resume right now. And so, for me, just being honest about it, I don't see any reason why the Atlanta Falcons should bring back Terry Fontenot to be their general manager moving forward. I think he should be fired. I think he needs to go. And again, the simple fact remains. After 4 seasons, Terry Fontenot has failed to get the job done as the Atlanta Falcons general manager. He's absolutely failed to get the job done as the Atlanta Falcons general manager. He's absolutely failed. There's no question about it. He's failed. And I think he needs to go. And again, look, there are some things to look forward to when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons overall in the big picture. Like I said, the offensive skill talent looks very promising. When you look at Michael Penix at quarterback, he looks like that dude. He looks like the Falcons have finally found the guy at quarterback. And so with Michael Penix, he looks very promising as a young quarterback talent. And so there's a lot to look forward with him. Bijan Robinson, like I mentioned before. Bijan Robinson, I think Bijan Robinson, when it comes to talent, pure talent at running back, he's as good as any running back in the league when it comes to just overall talent. That dude has it all. And I love watching him play. And I'll take it a step further with Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan Robinson has the ability and the mindset to become the greatest Atlanta Falcon running back in Falcon history. He could be the greatest Falcon running back ever. He has that kind of talent. And the Atlanta Falcons have had great running backs throughout their tenure. You can go to Jamal Anderson, to Warren Dunn, to TJ Duckett, to Michael Turner, to Devontae Freeman. I mean, you can go on and on and on. The Atlanta Falcons have had a lot of very good running backs. A lot of them. I think Bijan Robinson, just from a pure talent perspective, I think he's more talented than all of them, than all of those running backs that I just named. He has a chance to be undeniably special. And then there's Drake London. Like I said, I love his mentality. He has that dog. He has that dog in him. A guy that you want to go to war with. He ain't afraid of nobody. Look, I don't know. I don't know if Drake London is quite as good as Roddy White. Like, I think Roddy White's a little better as an overall receiver than Drake London is right now at the moment. But I love Drake London's mentality. I love his intangibles. I love his big gamemanship. Just the ability to just make tough catches. The grimy, grinded out, get it from the mud plays that he makes. Breaking tackles, running through people, being physical. I would go to war with Drake London any day of the week. He is incredible. And also I might have, look, I'll add in a guy like Darnell Mooney. He's been great himself. Darnell Mooney's awesome. He's been good. And so there's some good things that Terry Fontenot's done. But again, there's been a lot more wrong than right under his resume. There's no denying it. Look, Jesse Bates is another guy on defense. So I guess you give him some credit for that. But again, those are just 5 guys. 5 guys. And like I said, he's done a lot of wrong throughout his tenure. And so, again, Terry Fontenot to me, I think has not done a good job at all. The Kirk Cousins experiment, that's another thing. I mean, the Kirk Cousins signing was a whiff. Another whiff that falls on the feet of Terry Fontenot. Just another whiff. There's no denying it. Kirk Cousins just, I mean, what else is there to say? We paid this man $100 million guaranteed. And he only ended up playing 13 games. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, seriously, it's a joke. I didn't love it then, and I hated it. I hate it even more now. It never made sense to me that the Atlanta Falcons paid Kirk Cousins all of this money and you drafted Michael Penix. It never made sense to me. The process of that happening was laughable to me. Was laughable. I said it at the time and I still stand by it. Why didn't the Atlanta Falcons just sign Sam Darnold and used all that money? And by the way, you could have signed Sam Darnold to a cheaper contract. You wouldn't have to pay them big money. You could have signed Sam Darnold. You could have used all that money that you paid Kirk Cousins to upgrade the defense. And you could have drafted Michael Penix. And look, if Sam Darnold would have struggled, which maybe he would have, because look, everyone isn't Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, right? You know, he's the quarterback guru, it seems. And so maybe Sam Darnold would have struggled, or whatever cheap quarterback that the Falcons could have signed, that guy could have struggled. As a result of that, you could have put in Michael Penix a lot sooner. You could have given him a lot more reps. And by the way, Michael Penix is not like he's a young prospect. This is an older quarterback prospect. This is a guy that's played in a lot of games in college. So this guy knows quarterback systems and all of that stuff. And so the Falcons could have been better off just playing Michael Penix a lot sooner. And who knows? You know, with the way that this division was turned out, maybe you would have made the playoffs anyway. You know, you wouldn't have to worry about Kirk Cousins falling on his face. I mean, and so I hated the process of them signing Kirk Cousins. And now, as a result of that, in all likelihood, the Atlanta Falcons are going to end up cutting Kirk Cousins. You're going to have $65 million on your debt cap, debt cap. And now, as a result, it's going to be a little bit more harder for you to upgrade the team. And so the process of it was really awful. And all of these mistakes and bad decisions, from poor drafts to drafting Michael Penix to not hitting on your picks later in the draft to the Kirk Cousins move, all of these transactions is why Michael Penix needs to go. I mean, I'm not Michael Penix. Excuse me. It's why Terry Fontenot needs to go. There's just no denying it. He's got to go. And look, I don't think that's the only decision I think the Atlanta Falcons need to make. But personally, for me, if I was the Atlanta Falcons, this is what I would do. Big picture. As I mentioned, I think the Atlanta Falcons should let go of Terry Fontenot. I also think they should let go of the defensive coordinator, Jimmy Lake, because I look at Jimmy Lake and I'm sorry, but he has to go. I think he's been over his head all year as a defensive, or at least for most of the year as a defensive coordinator. Get a new defensive coordinator in here. I would keep Raheem Morris. And look, I get it. I've been disappointed in Raheem Morris. I get it. I'm still not over that showing against the Washington Commanders and how he never called a timeout. He blew that game. But at the same time, and this is just personal feeling for me, I'm not a fan of firing head coaches after 1 year. Unless that coach is so bad that that you win like 4 games. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a fan of firing coaches after 1 year. Unless you're like so horrible or so bad. Like New England, firing Gerard Mayo, I guess. Like that team was awful. But then again, in that situation, like people thought the New England Patriots were going to be awful anyway. And so, whatever with that. But in general, like I'm not a fan of firing coaches after 1 year, unless you're abysmal. And so I would give Raheem Morris at least another season, to see if he can right the ship and see if this team can add a little more talent, in particular on defense. And if this team is still not a playoff team, then yeah, it might be time to move on from Raheem Morris in 2025 or after the 2025 season in the 2026. And so I would keep Raheem Morris for another year. I would keep Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. I think he's fine. Look, I don't think he's been perfect, but I also think it's important to have Michael Penix, have some stability, and he's familiar with Zach Robinson's system. Let those two grow together for another offseason and see what happens, and see if Zach Robinson can get better. And again, I think continuity is a little important when you have a rookie quarterback like Michael Penix. And so I would keep Zach Robinson. I would fire Jimmy Lake. I would definitely fire Terry Fontenot. I would keep Raheem Morris. And when you look at the personnel decisions, this team's got to upgrade the defense. The defense absolutely needs to be upgraded on every level. This team has holes at edge rusher, linebackers, cornerback, maybe even safety. I mean, this team has holes on every level of the defense. And look, it's a shame that we're in year 4 and this defense is where it is. It's no different compared to where it was when Terry Fontenot first came here 4 years ago. And so it's not a good situation right now. It's not good at all. So again, there's just no denying it. This season for the Atlanta Falcons was an outright, undeniable, catastrophic failure. And as an Atlanta Falcon fan, there are some people in that franchise that need to pay the price for how this season turned out, because 7 wins to 8 wins is not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not all the upgrades, so to speak, that the Falcons made, and you only win one more game and you don't win all of last year? Really? It's not good enough. And so this season was an undeniable failure. Even if there are some things to look forward to heading into next year, this season was an undeniable failure. And hey, look, this team, this franchise, they got a lot of work to do if they want to have a better outcome than they had this past season. There's just no way around it. And it starts with moving and letting go of Terry Fontenot and Jimmy Lake, the defensive coordinator. And that's all I got for today. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode.